Welcome to today's Explainer. Our mission right now is to take a really deep dive into the observation records of Tommy Yoshida, or as he's known by his Japanese name, Yoshida Tsutomu. We're going to be looking into the mirror of artificial intelligence today, but not just to test out some flashy new tech tool, but to fundamentally understand human nature in this crazy digital age we're living in. Now, I want to be super clear right up front. This explainer isn't about evaluating AI, and it's definitely not a tutorial on how to use it. And we are absolutely not here to force any closed, definitive conclusions. Instead, we're just going to explore the open questions raised in both the Japanese and international editions of his work. We're leaning into a deep philosophical reflection on our evolving relationship with technology. As Yoshida puts it, unfinished thoughts, pending questions, and ideas that, well, just don't really need to be tied up in a neat little bow. They're left exactly as they are. This is all based on the assumption that we are right in the middle of a massive transitional period. Because of this beautifully raw approach, some of the language or the concepts we're looking at today might feel a little unnatural or maybe just a bit out of place. But that awkwardness, it's completely intentional. It's left uncorrected so we can actually observe how language, cutting-edge tech, and nuanced human judgment interact while society is actively shifting. It's literally like watching a mind in motion.
Moving right into Section 1, the AI analysis experiment, when AI reads your public profile.
So to really understand this dynamic, Yoshida recently decided to run this absolutely fascinating, highly personal experiment. He basically took his public X account, formerly Twitter, and fed his entire timeline into an advanced AI analysis service. He just wanted to see what the machine perceived when it looked at his digital footprint. And the crazy thing is, the AI didn't just spit back a boring spreadsheet of numbers, likes, or retweets. It did something way more sophisticated. It synthesized years of his output and summarized distinct patterns. It successfully identified his specific posting tendencies, mapped out his distinct writing styles, and even figured out exactly what his audience expected from him. It essentially took all these scattered data points and wove them together to construct this really comprehensive written persona, painting a highly articulate picture of him as an independent creator.
When talking about this, Yoshida said, "It felt like being introduced to myself by a third party," which is such a wild thought, right? There is this undeniable, almost eerie fascination in having a machine accurately summarize your digital soul. He was genuinely captivated, and honestly, probably a little surprised that the AI could articulate his outward-facing identity with such intense precision. Parts of the analysis were just incredibly spot on, perfectly capturing the rhythm of his daily outputs. It's a strange new phenomenon we're all kind of starting to face, looking at a reflection generated by cold computation and recognizing our own face in it. But as we'll see, reading the surface perfectly isn't quite the same as understanding the depths. Which brings us to Section 2, what AI cannot see, the missing why.
Because despite the striking accuracy of the AI's external analysis, there was this profound, fundamental disconnect when it came to his true underlying intentions. So from the AI's perspective, Yoshida was posting about a clearly defined set of separate, distinct themes. Things like law, digitalization, YouTube, Kindle publishing. It neatly categorized these topics into separate, logical little boxes. But Yoshida's actual intent? It's entirely different. To him, these aren't separate themes at all. They are completely intertwined, driven by one single, overarching philosophical question. How is AI changing society? He has literally spent years just recording the answer to that one profound question from different angles. The machine perfectly saw the separate categories, sure, but it completely missed the unifying thread, tying the whole shebang together. It really goes to show that while AI is incredibly adept at summarizing the what, it is entirely blind to the why. It has absolutely no concept of why someone feels the need to communicate in the first place. AI doesn't know your long-term goals, it doesn't know your lived personal experiences, your personal struggles, or the years of rich, quiet context behind your public work. It only sees the final, polished output. It is completely oblivious to the invisible engine driving that output, the human soul, that messy, lived experience that pushes a person to type out a thought and share it with the world. Well, that remains entirely opaque to the algorithm. And this realization leads us to a really fascinating crossroads. As AI becomes better and better at analyzing people, who is going to help us interpret those analyses? Think about it for a second. If the machine can perfectly map our outward behaviors and neatly categorize our digital habits, but totally misses our inner motivations, what happens when it hits its absolute interpretive limits? When the algorithm hands us a perfectly formatted summary of who we appear to be, who steps into that gap to help us figure out what it actually means?
Let's look at Section 3, the AI interpreter. A new human role emerges.
Yoshida predicts that navigating our future won't just be about having people who know how to prompt an AI or integrate new software. We're going to actually need human interpreters. And we aren't just talking about a traditional AI consultant here. We're talking about a completely new profession and skill set. This would be someone who interprets AI-generated insights, bridging that vast gap between raw algorithmic output and nuanced, messy human understanding. This person would look at the AI's mirror alongside you, factor in that missing why, and help identify your true human strengths while gently revealing personal blind spots. It's a role that's going to require massive amounts of empathy and lived experience to make sense of all that cold computational logic. Which naturally brings us to a central question posed in Yoshida's International Edition. How much trust should we place in AI's evaluation of ourselves? This carries immense philosophical weight. When an algorithm, backed by literally billions of data points, tells you who you are, how deeply should you let that define you? I mean, it is incredibly tempting to just defer to the machine, right? Assuming its objective distance makes it inherently wiser. But handing over the authority of self-definition to an algorithm is a dangerous game. We really have to deeply consider how we interact with these powerful reflections. That brings us to Section 4, Trusting the AI Mirror, Navigating Multiple Perspectives. Yoshida actually took a very specific, deliberate philosophical stance on how we should digest these evaluations. The key is not treating the machine's output as absolute gospel truth. So, did he believe the AI's incredibly accurate evaluation of him? The answer he landed on is half yes and half no. Exactly 50-50. There were parts of the analysis he absolutely agreed with and recognized as true. However, he adamantly refused to adopt the mindset of, well, the AI said so, therefore this must be exactly who I am. He didn't outright deny the machine's findings because, honestly, that would be ignoring a super valuable tool. But he certainly didn't swallow those findings whole either. He held the duality of accepting the observation while completely maintaining his own self-determination. So how do we practically apply this 50-50 mindset in our own lives? Yoshida proposes a very clear 3-step methodology for dealing with AI outputs. Step 1 is to understand. You have to objectively read what the AI is reflecting back at you without getting immediately defensive. Step 2 is to think. This is where you apply your own rich human context, your personal why, to that reflection. You're basically cross-referencing the machine's data with your own soul. And finally, step 3, utilize only what is needed. You actively choose to take the insights that serve your growth, and you confidently leave the rest behind. It's meant to be an active dialogue, not just a passive reception.
The core thesis of this entire explainer is exactly this. AI's analysis is just one perspective. It is merely one objective viewpoint among many, many possible viewpoints. The way a human peer looks at you, that's another perspective. Your own self-reflection is yet another. Human judgment and AI observation are essentially parallel mirrors. The real value doesn't come from choosing to exclusively believe either human judgment or machine observation. The profound wisdom comes from standing right between them and combining them. We absolutely must recognize the AI's immense analytical accuracy, but we have to treat it solely as an objective sounding board to spark deeper human reflection. It can never be a replacement for it. And this leads to perhaps the most crucial takeaway for all of us, especially as this technology deeply and irrevocably integrates into our daily lives. As Yoshida states, the most important skill will be learning how to question, interpret, and responsibly use those answers. The future is not going to be defined by our ability to get answers from AI. I mean, let's be real, getting answers is becoming the easy part. The future will be entirely defined by our human capacity to develop the wisdom to know exactly what to do with those answers once we have them. So we arrive at our final thought. I want to leave this question pending for you today, just as Yoshida gracefully leaves his thoughts open. When AI inevitably holds up a mirror to you, how will you interpret the reflection? Will you take its cold calculation as the absolute truth of who you are, or will you remember the invisible engine of your own why? Thank you so much for joining this deep dive. Take this reflection with you, and we will see you in the next explainer.